friends, it's Christy back with you on the My Favorite Things YouTube channel. Today I'm so excited to create a card using the new Rochelle Ann Miller set called Itching to Tell You Happy Birthday. I think these pups are so darn cute. I've stamped them out with Extreme Black Hybrid ink on Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock, and I'm going to be using a sheet of pattern paper from the Rainbow Love 6x6 pad as my color inspiration. I will be coloring with my Copic markers, so I'm just going to tuck that under my cardstock panel so I can draw my color combos from that. But before I get to the rainbow portions, I want to color in these sweet little pups, and I'm going to do little brown and white puppies. So for the white parts, I'm using E40 and E41, laying in a little shadow with that E41 first, and then blending out with the E40. And I'm going to let that fade into the white cardstock as the highlight, because I do want that to look white, but I just want to add a little bit of color to make them look a bit more dynamic and just popped off the page. So I'm going to color both of these puppies exactly the same, as if maybe they're siblings, litter mates. For the brown parts, I'm going to use E31, E33, and E35. And start with that E35, lay in a bit of color, just accentuating like the outside edges of the body and the undersides of the ears. And then coming in with that mid-tone, the E33, and beginning to blend that out. But I'm saving a few little places for that highlight shade, the E31. So I'm going to just fill in any white space, and then I'm going to color the other little guy. I'm going to do the patch on his face and his left ear. And by the way, I did do a second layer on these brown spots after the first one. I did that off screen to save you some time in the video, but I do often go over my darker images with a second layer just to deepen up that saturation. And then for the noses, rather than using black, I decided to go with some very dark browns. I used E44 and E47 for that. So now I'm ready to start pulling some colors from that pattern paper. The first one I want to do is a hot pink. My favorite combo for that is RV13, RV14, and RV17. So I'm going to do this little pup's bow that's tied over her ear. And then I'm going to start doing some stripes on that gift bow on the second box. I want to directly use the color that is in that pattern paper in the same exact order that it appears. So I'm just starting with the hot pink as if it were the red part of the rainbow, and I'll continue up from there. So next to that hot pink scallop is a little bit of a lighter pink. For that I went with RV10, RV11, and used the RV13 again. So my lightest became my darkest in this combo. I also used that RV10 to add just a little bit of a rosy cheek to my puppies to make them look extra cheerful. And then the next combo is a purple. I went with V12, V15, and V17. So I'm starting with that V17, and I'm doing my shading in the lower right with the highlight in the top left for each of these stripes. So I did decide to also do the balloon in purple. I wanted to have different pops of color represented across the images here, so I wanted to reuse that purple since I love purple. So I just again started in the same way with the darkest at the bottom right and the highlight at the top left, so all of that would be consistent. For the darker blue scallop that follows the purple on that pattern paper, I decided to represent that with B21, B24, and B26. That was the closest combo that I could get to matching that. And then for the lighter blue combo, I went with B000, B01, and B02. So that one's just a really pale. You could also go with BGs for that one, but I decided to use the Bs. And then for the lime green, I went with YG01, YG03 and YG05. And then I also wanted to do the filling that is in that gift box behind the little puppy, whether it's tissue paper or whatever that is back there. I decided to do that in this lime green as well, just to set him off. Just kind of pushes him even more forward to have that bright, vibrant color behind him. So I just did some shadows behind his head, close to his body, and then I'm putting the highlights toward the outside edges of that. For the yellow, I went with Y11, Y13, and Y15. And because there were only 2 places on that ribbon where that color would be represented, I thought that would be a good one to have on another image as well. So I decided to do the gift wrap on the gift box on the left in yellow as well. So I'm putting my shadows with that Y15 down toward the bottom of the box, and also any place where that ribbon would be casting a shadow if it's kind of overlapping. And then blending up with the Y13 and the Y11. And then next in order is the orange, which is going to finish off the rainbow scallops. So I'm going to use YR04, YR07, and YR09 for that. I will also do the bow on the second gift. And because the ribbon is bent in many places there as the little puppy dog is pulling on it, I'm adding a little shadow to any place where there's like a valley, and then I'm going to blend that out with the YR07 and leave those highest places where the bow is bowed the most, so it's lifted up toward the light. That is where I'm going to put my highlight with the YR04. And I did forget to do the ribbon that is wrapping around the box, so I will go back and do that in just a moment. And again, I'm just going to put my shadows down toward the bottom of the gift wrap to make everything look nice and consistent. And then I'm going to go back to that rainbow ribbon off screen and just finish the order. Since you've already seen me color it once, I wanted to save you some time in the video. So I'll just go back with the pink, the hot pink, the light pink, and the purple to finish off those ribbons. And then for the box, I wanted it to just be white so it would also tie into that pattern paper. So I'm doing a little bit of shading with W00 and W1. I wanted something that was different than the white tones that I used on the puppies. So I went with these warm grays. I thought that that really set off that rainbow ribbon nicely. And then I'm going to trim these images out with their matching dies. For my focal panel, I'm going to take the inside and out stitched arch stacks and die cut that out of some Bristol smooth surface cardstock. Then I'll take some Kitsch Flamingo Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to blend a little of that into the center, just starting in the very center and blending out in a circular motion. I want the color to be darker in the middle and then kind of fade out as it gets towards the edges. So I'm just going to keep adding that. I'm using very light pressure because I don't want it to get too dark. I want to have a nice smooth blend. So I kept that nice and soft. And then I'm going to add some water to an acrylic block, pick that up with a paintbrush, and splatter that all over the background. And I will let that dry for just a few seconds so it has time to react with that Distress Oxide ink. And then I'll lift that up with a dry tissue. And then I'm also going to do some splatter detail with that Kitsch Flamingo. So I'll press that onto the block as well and add some droplets of that just to create some nice interest in that focal panel. I'll set that aside to dry completely, and once it has, I'm going to pop it into my MISTI. I'm stamping with VersaFine Onyx Black ink because I am stamping on that smooth cardstock over some Distress Oxide ink. This ink just works really well for that. So I'm stamping the sentiment that says "Paws up for a birthday celebration," and I stamp that down twice so that it would be nice and bold. And then for the inside of the card, I'm actually going to do an insert since I'm using a dark card base for my card. So I've just die cut a piece of white cardstock with the second largest of the A2 stitch rectangle stacks, set 2. And I'm going to stamp another image and sentiment using purple ink. And I'm using the sentiment that says, "I'm itching to tell you happy birthday," which I think is super cute. Now I'm ready to start assembling, and I'm going to begin with that insert and just glue that down to the inside of the card so I have a nice border of cardstock on the outside. And then I trim down the pattern paper with the largest of the A2 stitch rectangle stacks, set 2, and I'm adhering that to a card base that I created out of some grape jelly cardstock. It is a standard A2 size card. It's 4 1/4 wide by 5 1/2 tall. I added some foam tape to the back of my focal panel, and I'm going to pop that up in the middle of the card, just making sure that it is nice and centered before I press that down into place. And then I'll bring in my images. I'm going to start with the larger one, which is the dog with the rainbow striped ribbon on the gift that he's popping out of. And then down in front of that, I'm going to add the other little puppy with the pink ribbon in her fur, her ear. And then finally, I'm going to add that little purple balloon over on the right hand side to kind of fill in that empty space. And you could leave it there, of course, but I always like to add a little bit of sparkle. So I'm using my favorite embellishment, which is Stardust Stickles, and adding a little bit here and there just to give it one extra step up. So I'm adding it to the purple balloon. I'm also going to add some to that tissue paper that the dog is kind of in front of, and just a little bit here and there, not covering the whole thing, mainly in the shadowed areas to make it really stand out. And then I'll also do some stickles on the orange ribbon just to have a little bit of glitter on that image as well. So once I'm done with that, I will lift this card up to the light so you can see how much that little bit of sparkle adds to it. And there you can see that. I'll give you another peek at the inside as well. I hope you guys really enjoyed this one. I had so much fun playing with these adorable little pups. If you did like it, please be sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. I love chatting with you guys. Subscribe to My Favorite Things for more inspiring videos just like these here on screen. Bye-bye.